Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 25 of the Audible Farm podcast. I'm your host. My name is Peter Stockdale. This week, I'm sitting down with Kirk Bricker. He got a hold of me on Facebook. He said that he builds cigar box guitars. I was intrigued. I had him over here. We sat down and had a conversation about cigar box guitar building, and I've never been more I've never questioned somebody so much in a podcast because this is so far out of my element. I've never actually built a cigar box guitar. I had never played one up until this point. I had only seen some videos of what he had done online, and I had assumed the videos didn't do his cigar box guitars do justice, and boy oh boy, they do not. Holy cow, these things are amazing. When we got done with the podcast, he busted a couple of them out and played a few tunes for me and showed me what he's getting himself into. And the interview is amazing, and I almost wish I would have recorded what we had after the interview, because he played a handful of tunes and he sat down and showed me some of the things on the guitars, and it kind of makes me wish I actually had a video podcast for this, or wished he had a Facebook page or something like that, because holy cow, he has some amazing stuff. So check out this next interview coming up. It's episode number 25 with Kirk Bricker, and just enjoy this, because I had a great time sitting down talking with him about building cigar box guitars and what got him to start doing it. And we actually pinpointed a direct point, a couple of people that influenced him to do what he's doing now. And I'm not sure that he's going to build cigar box guitars for a living. As of right now, it just seems like a hobby for him, but we get into all that and more in the podcast, so enjoy this. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to episode number 25. This is Kirk Bricker.
It's the Audible Farm podcast with your host, Peter Stockdale.
Here from my garage, trying to borrow a heater. And then I build the cigar box guitars out in my uncle's full wood shop out there. So I was going to go out there and do the podcast out there, but then he said the snow was piled up in front of it. So I'm like,
Yeah, no kidding.
I was struggling.
So I guess we'll just start it out somewhere in here. I'm sitting down with, it's Kirk Bricker. Is that right?
Yep.
And you and I actually just met on Facebook. You had contacted me because you saw I had a podcast, mm-hmm. and you intrigued me with a story of you building cigar box guitars, and I went and looked on your Facebook page and saw you playing some of them, and they sound great. So what I guess what I'm wondering is, how did you get into thinking about building cigar box guitars? What was the thing that got you to start doing that?
So my relatives were all playing guitars back in the day, and that was their thing. Family reunions, they would play guitars. And my one of my great grandfathers had a banjo. He'd always bring his banjo to the family reunion. So I'm like, I gotta get a banjo. I gotta go buy a banjo one of these days. So finally, I broke down and met a guy in Mason City that came over from a town east of there. Bought the banjo for $100, I think it was, in a hard case. So I started teaching myself how to play the banjo, and I was struggling with the frets and my fingering and trying to learn how to, push my fingers down and fretting the chords and stuff. And I'm a full carpenter. I was a carpenter for 10 years. So,
all right.
And I seen a little blurb on Facebook about these cigar box guitars, and I did some research. I'm like, wow, it's just a stick in a box.
Yeah.
And I don't have any frets. I'm
yeah.
like, oh. Well, there we go. Yep. So I made my first one in 2012.
Oh, that's cool.
13, 14, I kind of dibble-dabbled, made a few more. And then in 2015, I made probably 20 or so. And sold a few of them to family members and cousins that wanted them, that were kind of cool. And I have a cousin that lives in Oklahoma that plays in a band, and he thought it was cool. And
yeah.
So and then I just started tinkering with them a little bit better. Made some 4-strings. Started getting in electric, different pickups.
Yeah.
Different types of pickups.
So let's start here. Since I don't know too much about cigar box guitars, how many strings does a cigar box guitar usually have?
usually has 3 or 4.
3 or 4?
Yep.
So when you first started building them, I'm assuming you started with 3-string.
Yes.
And then you moved to 4-string. Do you have to like make a flatter neck, like plane off the neck and everything, or it's not just like a round dowel type thing coming out of a box?
No. So like the history of cigar box guitars are way back in the day in 1800s or 1900s. You have a broom back in the southern states, and it's a broom that has the straw on it, and it has a wire that is around the straw.
Okay.
And they take that wire off and drive a couple nails in the broomstick, and they wire that wire up to the 2 different nails, and that was their musical instrument back in the day.
Okay.
I'm not sure actually where the box got into that, but there's diddly bows that use 1 string with a box.
I've seen those.
Yeah, and there's some 2 strings, and when you get into 3-string, it's 3 notes typically for a chord. So G D G is G. It's an open G chord.
Yep.
So that's kind of where the 3-string starts, and then when you get into 4 strings, that you get that other note in there.
Yep.
Whether it's a B for your G chord,
Yep.
G D G B, you get into that B note. So that's when you get into the 4-string, and it still sounds a lot deeper.
Yep.
With the 4-string. So.
Yeah. So that's cool. Like, I guess in the musical aspect of it, you'd be adding the 3rd. Yeah, it'd be the 3rd of the chord.
Yep.
On the very bottom end. So yeah, that's
the theory. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's pretty neat actually. I never really thought too much about how they were strung up. So you could essentially just like bar the whole thing and play a chord the whole way up and down it if you really wanted to.
Yep.
So do you usually use like a slide with that or?
Yep. I just started with a glass slide. That's all I've used so far for the 4 or 5 years I've played. So, and like I said, there's no frets, so you just bar across the number. And on the side of the neck, I'll number the frets all the way down to 12.
Oh, that's cool.
So I'll know where I'm at.
Yep.
Like a guitar has the circles or whatever.
Yep. Yeah, I was actually going to ask you that. How do you know exactly where you're at? But yeah, so you put little markers on there and stuff.
Yep.
So you started making these, we'll say it was about 7 years ago, and then you kind of sold a couple off to some family members and such. Have you done much of that since then?
So I had a booth at the Clarion Festival last year.
All right.
I sold 2 there. So for the sell part of it, I'm kind of dibble-dabbling into I'm struggling with, do I teach myself more how to play, or do I make some more and get a Facebook page and go a little bit more mainstream with them?
Yeah.
And do I add frets to them, or do I not add frets to them?
Yeah. Have you ever tried adding frets to one of them?
I have, yes. So the 3-string is a number 5, number 4, and number 3 out of a guitar set of strings.
Okay.
So I have the 6-string left over and the 2 and the 1 left over, and packets of. So I have packets and packets of strings.
Yeah.
So I just found something online. I'm like, well, you use the guitar strings as frets. So I tried that once. I used the number 6 string and tried to make frets with that and glue it to the fretboard, and it just didn't work.
Yeah.
So
I can imagine it'd be tough to get them all exactly in the right spot and
straight.
Straight. Yeah. That'd be the other tough one because it's not like when you're done with a guitar string, you just leave it straight and hang it up. You wind it all up, in a circle and put it back away in the pack or whatever. So
I've kept all my what would you call them? What do you call I'm trying to think of the word where you have you're testing different ideas.
Yeah, like your little prototypes of different things.
I have a stack of prototypes. Yeah. And some guys, they burn them, but I'm thinking I'm gonna keep them.
Yeah, why not? You got your own little museum of I don't want to say your failures, but the failures is what you learn off of. So,
exactly.
And that's something I'm learning as I grow older. So it's, you can't just throw away everything that's a failure and walk away from it. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be as far as you are into building cigar box guitars now. So, use actual cigar boxes, I'm assuming.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. So, I mean, I guess I don't know. I just assumed, but at the same time, you never know. Maybe somebody makes cigar box guitars without a cigar box. I don't know.
Yeah, you can just custom make a box.
Yeah.
With finger joints.
Yeah.
Sure. Out of different types of wood.
So where do you get the cigar boxes? I mean, are you a cigar aficionado and you just got dozens of boxes laying around, or?
That's another part of the great story is I don't smoke cigars, so it's like so periodically throughout travels, or there was a tobacco shop in Fort Dodge there that was a really great tobacco shop, and I would go in there and they would have empty cigar boxes, and they would sell the paper ones for $2 and the wooden ones for $3.
Nice.
Empty,
Yeah.
And then if there was one cigar left in the box, you could buy the cigar for $6 and you get the box with it.
Oh, nice.
So I do have a stack of cigars too now.
Oh, that's cool. Just in case, New Year's or somebody gets pregnant or something. I guess I don't know what people smoke cigars for, really, but
Yeah, special occasion.
So, did you originally start playing like a regular guitar at all, or was the banjo the first thing you tried to play?
The banjo was the first thing I tried to play, and like I said, I maybe played it for a year. So it was probably 2011 when I bought the banjo, and then 2012 was when I just kind of set it aside and made my first cigar box with no frets. And then I followed a guy that was in Australia on YouTube, and he started playing like AC/DC and Johnny Cash on fretted cigar boxes. I'm like, wow, this is kind of easy. And I like, well, I can play songs pretty quickly.
Yep.
Because I'm just barring chords.
Yep.
So that's kind of where that started too.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of crazy that, like, did you play any instruments, like, growing up in school, or?
Yeah.
So you had a little bit of musical background.
Yeah, I can read music. I played the piano back in high school.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
Drums.
Yeah.
And I was playing the drums in band and stuff. But as for a stringed instrument, no, I didn't play a string instrument back then. So.
Yeah. Do you ever play, like, a drum kit, like a full kit?
I did have a drum kit, yep.
Yeah, do you ever play in a band or anything like that, or?
Nope, never played in a band.
You still play the drums at all?
A little bit, yeah. I don't have a kit with me, but yeah, I've dibble-dabbled a little bit when I've been, with Clint and, with Riedel, I've played with him a little bit here and there.
Oh, cool.
When he's had open jams and stuff, I'll sit on the kit and stuff. But
nice.
Yeah, that's pretty fun.
That's awesome. I'm all about going to those jam nights. I just kind of discovered them a few months ago, and I was like, man, these things are too much fun to go to, like I even like went out of my way to go to Fort Dodge to the one a couple weeks ago at Patty's Pub. And like I went like super late at night, and it was still fun,
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it's totally worth the drive. I hope I see you at one. I'd love to have you behind the kit and actually get to play with you sometime. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
You ever thought about bringing a cigar box guitar to a jam night?
Yeah, I've done it a few times. Yeah, I've went out to the open mic in Timbuk Brew. They have one on Thursday nights. I've been to the Pomeroy one. That's once a month, I believe. And then I get out to Barnum every once in a while with Clint and play.
Oh, that's cool.
So, yeah.
Yes, that's really sweet.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess all you'd have to do is be in the right key, right? Do you tune it differently on the fly, or do you bring in ones that are tuned to certain keys?
So with a 5/4/3 string, I can tune from the key of D up to the key of A.
Mm-hmm.
And typically, if I go to A a lot, it's going to break a string.
Yeah.
But typically, I have a set that I've made that I can play around 20 or so songs. So I start on the key of G, and I tune down to the key of D.
Oh, that's
through every song that I play. I
down tune your way.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, I guess that makes sense because it would lessen your opportunity of breaking a string up. You tune up and you only get 5 songs in, and you break a string. And you're like, well, I guess that's it.
Yeah.
So you have actual like guitar tuner pegs on there, or
Yep.
or all right.
Yeah.
I guess I'd really have to. We don't have one like right in front of us. I'm sure you brought one with you though.
I did, yes.
Yeah, we'll have to bust one out. I mean, we could even like pause this and come back and look at it again if you want. But yeah, it's really an intriguing thing to me. I've never really sat down and thought too much about playing a cigar box guitar, and I think the first video I saw of you playing was "Wish You Were Here" by Pink Floyd.
Oh yeah.
And I was just like, holy crap. Like it's not like you have to guess what it is. You know what it is instantaneously when it starts coming out. And and there was another one I was listening to you play earlier today while I was listening to some more, and I was like, I know exactly what song that was, but I can't. I don't. had a long day at work, and it's just kind of like I still kind of in
Well, I
that
mean,
brain melt mode. But
you want me to rattle some off or
yeah,
whatever?
yeah. What kind of stuff do you play?
Well, the first one was Johnny Cash, Folsom Prison Blues. There's George Thorogood, Bad to the Bone.
Uh-huh.
Is a slide guitar song, really.
Yep.
And Tom Petty, Running Down a Dream. That's in the key of E.
Yep.
Fairly easy to play there. Metallica's in the key of E. One of the Metallica songs that I can play is pretty interesting. I guess I'm trying to think what the other ones. There's a couple country ones that I play also.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, I mean, we were talking a little bit about how you kind of sell them on the side a little bit. Is there somewhere like people could go to find your information? Because I mean, you were talking about how you don't have a Facebook page and you don't really have too much of that stuff going on. But like, let's say somebody's actually intrigued by the podcast and wants to get a hold of you. Other than me tagging you on Facebook, is there anywhere they could go?
I don't really have a presence on Facebook or the internet to go and purchase or see them and purchase them. I guess they could reach out to me through Facebook Messenger or through the Audible podcast, and then I'd be able to get a hold of them. Like I said, it's more of a hobby right now, and so it hasn't really blown up into a large corporation where I'm just
Yeah.
pumping these out left and right.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I said before, it's kind of like that yin and the yang. Do I teach myself more and more how to play these, or do I
Yeah. I mean,
start building them? And
I totally with you on that because like I feel like the whole aspect behind you building one in the first place was you had the know-how and you wanted to learn something that was not the banjo. So you actually like did it to want to play the thing, right?
Yep.
And so like what did you think when you first like made a cigar box guitar and you were like, I'm going to make this thing and play it? Like what did you have in mind originally as to like what you could play or what kind of songs were going to come out and like what was the progression? Because I'm sure you didn't just bust out Metallica on the first one.
No. That happened a little bit further down the line.
Yeah.
So it's really the YouTube experience. It's the YouTube learning experience. So you do a little bit of research, and like I said, that guy in Australia that could play Folsom Prison Blues on it. And I'm a huge Johnny Cash fan, and that, like I said, that was the first song that I taught myself was Folsom Prison Blues. So when the first cigar box I made, that's the first song I taught myself how to play.
All right.
So I mean, that guy, like I said, in Australia could play it, and I'm like, I could do this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think that attitude definitely helps when you want to learn an instrument is to be able to look at somebody and be like, I think I can do that, and then it turns into, I could totally do that. It's not that going to be that big of a deal,
Yep.
And like something like that for my end was, I mean, obviously like learning to play the guitar. I'm just like you. I'm internet taught. Like the internet showed me how to do it, and I learned that's how I learned, and I figured out where my holes were at and kept filling them in slowly, and like. I started customizing guitars a little bit on the side, so I've customized a couple in the past couple of years, and that's how I learned how to do it. It was the same thing. You just go online and you find somebody that's customizing stuff, and you're like, I wonder how to do this, and then you just go one step at a time and start figuring it out, and then before you know it, you're doing what they're doing.
Sure.
And it is kind of the weird thing when you think about like, how much do I actually want to do this? Like, I'm sure you wouldn't mind making cigar box guitars for a living, but at the same time, like, do you want to make cigar box guitars for a living? Like, so,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
that's kind of how I think, like, me customizing a guitar thing. So I'm trying to like draw a parallel, I guess, between like our two lives a little bit. And I don't know, like, what's your take on that whole thing? Cause I know you said you're right now, you're kind of like, I want to play this thing more.
Yep.
But, I mean, do you have aspirations of joining a band, or are you fine just showing up to the jam nights? Or is it just kind of like a hobby thing where you're just plunking around in the basement sometimes?
Those are questions in the back of my head. Do I want to join a band? And I've talked to a lot of guys that are in bands, talked to a fair amount that are playing by themselves. And like I said, I've been to a couple open mic nights, and it's almost like you have your own equipment, so you have your own pedals, and you learn your own way. So it's like, I don't know. It's difficult to join a band if you're set in your ways, I guess, and how you play. But yeah, in the back of my mind, I did do one. My first bar gig was a couple weeks ago, so I did do my first bar gig, and with my own equipment. and it was almost a train wreck. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Most firsts are.
yes,
So,
yes.
but so like I don't know. Do you want to elaborate at all? Like where were you at?
I actually played at the Well in Goldfield,
Oh,
which was
cool.
2 blocks from my house. I'm like, this is perfect.
Yeah.
So
No kidding.
I talked to the manager on Facebook, and I'm like, I'm thinking about doing this. And she goes, okay. She goes, we'll have you. And I told her, I said, maybe an off night. Could I do an off night? And she kind of thought about it, and she got back to me. She goes, okay, how about this Saturday night? I'm like, okay. And I got back to her, and she goes, what's going on Saturday night? Well, we're celebrating all birthdays for the month. I'm like, okay. So the place was packed.
Yeah, it's not. That's not exactly an off night. You
Yeah.
know?
So
Jeez.
yeah, it was a struggle there at the beginning with feedback and the microphone issues, and but anyway, it was a good learning experience too.
Yeah. I mean, I talk about it. It seems like about every other podcast how the sound guy never gets enough thanks at a show because it's not an easy process. Like especially if you have to set it all up yourself and get everything. Like I mean, you got to have a mixer, or maybe you don't have a mixer, and it's just like, well, then what do? You got to like string a whole bunch of speakers together and hope you don't get feedback coming into the microphone. And it is
definitely an art.
There is definitely an art form to it, and I'm not going to say that I'm great at it, but I guess I can pull it off. But it's still like I will yield to somebody else in a heartbeat if they're like, I think you should do it this way, and it's just like, here's all the stuff, you do it,
Sure, yeah.
So what'd you think though? Would you like to go do another show sometime?
Oh yeah.
I mean,
yep.
Yeah. So
yeah, I'd like to do another show. I don't know when or where or how or how it actually comes to fruition, but it'll happen again.
yeah, definitely. I mean, and you were just a solo act, so it was just you, a cigar box, guitar, and a microphone.
Correct.
So you ever think about like just having somebody play like a cajon, like a little box drum set or something next to you? And
Yeah.
I mean,
Keep you in beat for sure.
yeah, I mean, that was something that I learned. Like one of the first jam nights I went to there was like 4 people at it, and it was a handful of years ago in Algona when it was still the Afterlife, and there just like wasn't anybody there on whatever night. It was like a Thursday or Friday night, and so my buddy was up there playing guitar, and he just had a cajon sitting there, and I was like, I'm just gonna sit next to you and play this cajon, and it adds just enough dynamic to what's going on. It keeps everybody like perfectly in beat, and it's kind of fun when you drop out the guitar and the cajon's still going, or vice versa. It's just kind of a nice, neat little dynamic.
Sure.
I'm really intrigued by the fact that you play the drums too, and you switch to a string instrument. Is there a reason you don't like take to the drums as much anymore, or is it just the whole like the bulkiness of having a drum set sitting around as opposed to a cigar box guitar being quite a bit smaller?
Yeah. Or it's been 20 years since I've actually had a kit.
Yeah.
So there is a big gap there of, raising a family and I'm struggling with that now. I have a family and I have a wonderful wife and wonderful 2 kids, and so that's that balance of yin yang. Do I put a kit in the family room and start jamming in the family room or, so yeah.
They're sitting down trying to watch a family movie and like eating popcorn, and you're just trying to bust out like Hot for Teacher on the drums or something,
Yeah.
I totally get you.
Yeah. So a little history too. I've actually been a DJ at a dance club in Des Moines. So if that gives you a little bit different of the aspects of what I've done in the past
no
too.
kidding. So what kind of DJ stuff did you do? Just like, did you like take requests, or was it like you would come up there with your own playlist, or did you actually like scratch records or like...
No, actually, I answered an ad on Craigslist, to be honest with you, and it was something I dibble-dabbled in a little bit at home, and I'm like, well, I wonder... So anyway, I answered the Craigslist ad, and I was actually a DJ at a dance club in Des Moines over by Urbandale for 4 years, every Saturday night, so...
That's awesome.
It was a blast.
I bet.
It's one of those jobs that you just, you really loved,
Oh, yeah. I mean... You probably almost walk away every night with a fun story, from something like that. Just from observing, like you get to watch everybody else kind of do their thing, and that's kind of the fun part about being like I don't necessarily drink anymore. I haven't drank in a while. It doesn't mean I won't, but I just don't right now. I don't know. so like I go to bars and I get to just observe everyone, and it's kind of fun at this point in my life, because at one point I was like, man, is everybody just doing this to me? Just like watching me.
Sure.
The closer it gets to 2 o'clock, the crazier this person gets or whatever. But I don't know. It's just kind of fun to actually just go and watch people, and maybe be the person providing the entertainment musically. And so there's like maybe a small parallel there, but
Sure.
but that's, man, a DJ too. That's
Yeah,
kind of
so-
nuts. So you've just been like a jack of all trades over the last handful of years.
Yeah, I mean, you go from Lady Gaga to, to playing a musical instrument and singing Johnny Cash and busting out a little, George Thorogood. And it's
Yep.
like, yeah, the dynamic of that is, I was thinking about that, I'm like, DJ for 3 years, and then I bought a banjo, and now I'm building these cigar box guitars. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've always I take it you've always really enjoyed music.
Oh, yeah.
It's been something
Definitely.
that's been with you for a while. I mean, if you play a drum kit, did you play the drum kit in band in school, or did you just kind of pick it up on the side?
Well, so I was in the drum section in band, yes, in the marching band also, and then I did. My parents bought a drum kit, and I had the drum kit downstairs, and I dibble dabble with the drum kit. I didn't take it any farther than that, though. I didn't have lessons with the drum kit, so
Yeah.
that's about how far that went.
You didn't have like a jazz band or anything in band with a drum kit, or?
Well, we did, yes, but the number one position for the drummer was playing the drum kit.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't the number one
Yeah,
position
oh.
in band. So.
I certainly was not either. I'll be the first to admit that.
Yeah.
And I guess I don't know. Like, it's not like it's here nor there, but there's a lot of those people that don't make music anymore, and here I am still trying, at least. Like,
Yep.
I guess I don't know if I would. Man, making music for a living would be a very tough thing, I would think. Like, I mean, I always think to myself, like, I would really enjoy it, but it would actually, I think it'd be just like anything else. It'd be a little bit of a grind. I mean, you'd have to
Yep.
mix your business in with what you actually enjoy, which is playing the instrument, which I
Correct.
think would also kind of make it somewhat tough. I guess maybe that comes right back to your conundrum: is do you want to make cigar box guitars or play cigar box guitars?
Yeah, that's the yin and the yang. Do I start building them again, or
Yeah.
or do I just keep playing it? So
So you had mentioned that you have electric cigar box guitars.
yep.
All right. So like, walk us through that. So I'm assuming with a cigar box guitar, you got to cut a hole in it, like with an acoustic.
That's correct.
All
Yeah.
right. Do you still cut the hole in it if you are going to make an electric one?
Yeah. I would say so. Could that helps with the acousticality of the cigar box. Through my research and stuff, they talk about if you can fit an egg through the hole in your cigar box guitar, that size of that sound hole is about appropriate.
That makes sense.
I don't know if that's true or not, or hearsay or he say. But
Yeah.
yeah.
That sounds like a good rule of thumb.
Yep.
So with an electric one, do you use you got metal strings, so you can use a guitar pickup of some kind.
Yep. Well, actually, they're acoustic strings that I put on them.
Oh, you put acoustics on them.
Yep.
But they're still be metal though.
Yeah,
So-
they're brass wound metal. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not like steel guitar slide strings.
Yeah. So if you want to amplify it, like when you have an electric cigar box guitar, you're going to plug it into something, correct?
Into an amp.
Yep. And
PA.
and so you just have like a microphone inside of it, or
No. So I first started with piezo discs.
Okay.
Those are round discs that pick up sound. And then through the research and through my mess up guitars, I would call it, I've gone up to like 4-pole pickups, active pickups. I brought a couple that are active pickups that take a 9-volt battery. And those take a piezo stick type piezo disc. No, it's not a disc, but it's a stick. And then you get into I have one that has a P90 soap bar in it, and that's my favorite one so far.
Yeah.
And you get into the humbuckers. I have a couple of humbuckers on them. So
oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Do you find that, I guess, positioning the humbucker up or down affects the way that it sounds a little bit?
yes, it does. Yeah. Closer to the bridge, it would have a higher and a higher sound.
Yep.
Farther away from the bridge, a little bit lower tonality to the sound.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it'd be like I was just like with a guitar, it was the closer to the bridge was like brighter, I guess you could say, and the closer to the neck, like the farther away from the bridge, it would get warmer or like rounder sounding.
Sure.
So like so you have like a 6-pole pickup that you're putting on a 3 or 4 pole or 3 or 4 string guitar, right?
Actually, they make 4 poles.
They make 4-pole ones?
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
So you actually, man, I guess I never knew that. So here I am. I'm still learning.
They make 3-pole too. I actually have a 3-pole one that I brought with me. So yeah, they have 3-pole ones too.
So you can actually find a pickup that's suited perfectly for like a cigar box guitar or something like that. All right. So like, do normal, like, I don't want to say normal companies, but like do like DiMarzio or like any of those kind of companies, like Seymour Duncan, do they make them, or do you have to like go get them custom made? Because I do know that like online, you can just go buy a pickup winder and wind your own pickups up if you want to.
Yep, I've watched some YouTube videos on that.
Yep.
Learning that. Should I get into that? Nah.
Yeah, it's.
Nah.
I feel you. It's just like how many hobbies does a guy need,
Yeah.
you know? So you're gonna let somebody else make the pickups for you
Yeah.
for now.
Yeah.
But so you found somebody online at least, or somebody somewhere that makes these with 3 or 4 pole, and I guess I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
So
I actually joined a Facebook group that is for winders that wind pickups.
oh, that's crazy cool.
So yeah, if you actually want a certain tonality out of your guitar or out of your cigar box guitar, I'm sure there's somebody that would wind you, 300,000 winds or whatever you would need to have on a pickup and really customize a sound for you.
Yeah, I mean that's something else that I haven't looked too deep into, just for the simple fact that it's like I don't want to get lost in a whole new thing and then be like, I'm going to buy a pickup winder, and you like make 3 pickups for one guitar and you call it good and you never make any ever again.
Yeah.
Because that would be my luck, unfortunately. I just kind of end up going that way sometimes. The piezo pickup system, I've seen those and looked at a few of them, and you were talking about one with like a bar. Is like are they kind of like a normal pickup? Because I've seen some of them that were actually like the bridge mechanism itself was the pickup.
They have those too that the pickup is built into the bridge.
Yep.
Yes. Similar like with the piezo stick, I guess you'd call it. You would mount that underneath, in the guitar underneath the bridge.
Uh-huh.
That stick, because it's about the same length as the bridge.
Yeah.
That stick would be.
Yeah. From what I understand, piezo pickups, they could pick up smaller vibrations and amplify them up to a larger
Correct.
sound. Okay. So
Yeah, you can use it as a drum machine, really.
Really?
Yeah.
So
the piezo, and get a looper involved, and yeah.
I guess oh man, that now you're starting to talk about some crazy stuff. Throwing a looper on an electric cigar box guitar could be a lot of fun, man. Yeah. Oh, you could really just start jamming with yourself on one of those. That was one of the first things that when I bought a loop pedal, it was like one of the first things that I was just like, oh man, now I get to see like those people on the sidewalks that just have like a bass guitar and a loop pedal and like a little PA system. Like those guys are having a blast with just a little bit of stuff, and it just always it just intrigued me so much. So now that I'm intrigued by this cigar box guitar, so now I'm like, oh man, I'm just finally actually realizing, I guess, that it's literally just a guitar, just a cigar box and a stick and some strings, but it's still a guitar.
Yeah.
So you could in essence just plug it into one of these amps over here and run the thing through a full stack if you really wanted to. I mean, in essence, you'd have to deal with some feedback issues, I'm sure, somewhere, but
yeah, depending on how it's built. Sure.
Have you ever tried to put one through like a guitar amp with some like dirtiness to it or anything like that? Like,
yeah, I have some pedals that create some dirtiness, and I've plugged into a stack before, and the stack was in an apartment, so it wasn't like we were gonna crank it up or anything. But it was fairly interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, this is really gonna sound weird. Have you ever thought about making like I don't know if this would even be possible, but like a solid body kind of cigar box guitar, and now we're talking maybe even like bypassing the cigar box altogether or filling it in with something?
Yeah, there's guys that have done that. I've seen videos and stuff. You just take a 2x12.
Yeah.
and you make a solid body out of it, and hone it out to where you put the pickups in it, and drill it out to where you have the plug in on the side of the 2x12,
Yep.
and form and shape it towards a guitar and build it. Yeah,
Oh man.
definitely.
So you can actually, yeah, okay. So you could pull that off if you really wanted to. It kind of deletes the whole cigar boxness of the whole thing, but it's still a cigar box guitar.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about trying to make a cigar box guitar or something like that out of something completely not cigar box like? For example, I'm sure people have seen it, but on YouTube I saw a video of a guy that made a shovel into a whatever they call this single string stick.
Yeah.
I'm forgetting the name at the moment, but yeah, it was just a shovel guitar. You
Yep.
can look it up on YouTube, and it's just a single string, but it's the guy's playing like Rage Against the Machine on it and stuff, and he's putting it through an amplifier, and it sounds really cool. Like, have you
Yeah.
ever thought about doing anything like that, or?
I haven't really got to the extent of the shovel. My wife did get a hockey stick from a hockey game down at the Iowa. Is it Iowa Wild, I believe?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, she did get a hockey stick, and I'm trying to convince her to turn that into a 3-string. So we'll see how that comes on to fruition. But I did buy a box of moon pies at the Bass. Was it the Bass Pro Shops, or what's the one in Altoona there?
I think it's a Bass Pro Shop.
Yeah.
It's Cabela's or Bass Pro or something.
Yeah, so I bought a metal tin and used metal tins also. They're kind of the similar size of a cigar box. So
Yeah.
I bought a metal tin of moon pies, and I haven't actually made it yet. I don't think I've actually ate all the moon pies out of it. That was kind of my goal. Eat all the moon pies first, and then try to make a guitar.
Oh
out of it,
man.
so.
That would have made my old man light up if he heard you say moon pies. That's all I gotta say. That takes me back to my childhood. I stuffed quite a few of those down in my day. Oh man, so you've thought about like even like metal. Have you seen anybody actually like do this with a cigar box guitar? Like take a metal tin and do it with that, or like
Yeah.
How do you think it would change the sound? Or
Well, so the top of the cigar box is the soundboard.
yep.
So when you have a metal tin on top of that, I mean, it does change the dynamics of the sound. There's other resonators that you can do. There's metal discs that you can put on the top of the cigar box, and there's a company that makes metal discs for cigar box guitars, and you can make it's like I said, it's resonates a little differently, and the sound's different when you have that metal lid on there.
Yeah.
So it certainly changes the dynamics of the sound.
Yeah, I mean now we're talking like resonator guitars, the
Yep.
ones that have,
Yep.
like you said, like a metal disc in them that kind of does a little bit of the
Yep.
vibrating and moving to make the sound, as opposed to just going through a hole and vibrating a piece of wood on top.
Correct. Yep.
So do you? Now we're gonna talk some other stuff. So cigar box flip open top, right? Mm-hmm. So do you use the flip open top as your front of the guitar? Like, is that the or do
yes.
you use the bottom side?
So typically I use the top of it because that's where all the graphics are at for the cigar, for the actual design and the colors. They're really on the top of the lid. And some people use the bottom of them, but I've all mine that I've built over 50 or so of them, and the lids is really what I key on. I really don't want to cut into the design and the colors. If I have to put a sound hole in there and it doesn't work on the lid, I'll put the sound hole on the side.
Oh yeah.
Even it's just to get the sound out. So,
Yep.
because I don't want to mess with the graphics and the colors and the design on the lid. So,
Yeah, that's really interesting. I guess I never thought about that either. Being a guy that doesn't smoke cigars, I guess I don't know too much about the boxes. So like, I mean, why would they put any of the cool designs on the bottom? No one's gonna see it. So I never thought too much about that. I guess I could also see why some people would use the bottom, like maybe trying to state that it's more sturdy on the bottom or something, or
Yeah.
or like, if we do
there's
it,
some theory about
yeah,
that.
if we do the bottom, then you can hang it up backwards, and you still got a cool design on the other side, or something. I'm sure there's some rhyme or reason as there is with why most people do most anything, but
Sure.
Well, I'm really like intrigued by this. I never thought too much about cigar box guitars, and this kind of got me out of my element for now to kind of think about it. How about like a regular guitar? Have you ever tried to pick up a regular guitar, or are you thinking like 6 strings is way too many, or like, because you've already got the basic concept and science of it down for the most part?
Yeah. So that's kind of my whole phrase is, a cigar box guitar has three strings, and a six-string guitar has three too many. So, so yeah,
Oh man, that could be like on a shirt somewhere, so your first shirt that you make's got to have that on it
yeah,
as far as I'm concerned.
yeah.
So do you go to a lot of jam nights, or do you just kind of whenever you can, or?
It's mostly whenever I can. The Barnum on Tuesday nights is an hour drive. Going over to Pocahontas, yeah, that's 45 minutes or so. The Timbuk Brew is pretty close. It's a great opportunity for a bar to have an open mic night on some night during the week. It's great, and you never know who's going to come in there.
Exactly.
Somebody can bring a triangle in there and just bust some music out
Yeah,
with a
no,
triangle. I
no,
mean, who knows?
you never do know. And I mean, like I was at an open mic night not too long ago, and there was like a mini band got up there. There was just like 4 or 5 guys. Like we got like 3 or 4 songs we want to play, and it was like, all right, all you guys go up there and jam. And they went up there and just rocked it, and it was
Yep.
like, oh, cool. This is, because it starts to deviate from that typical like, oh, we're doing this blues song in this key, and then everybody
Yep.
just knows what's going on. Where these guys are up there playing like '90s rock songs and early 2000s rock songs. It's like, hell yeah, that's a cool, gear shift that's going on.
Yep.
So I'm sure that's kind of like the same deal. If you get up there with a cigar box guitar, everyone's like, oh, sweet, it's this is something new.
Definitely.
This isn't just somebody with a Telecaster or whatever.
Yeah.
Not just throwing out a name. It seems like
Sure.
almost it's always Strats and Tellys at jam nights. But, I'm just as guilty as everyone else. I think that's almost everything I've brought to a jam night was almost always my Strats. So, like,
Sure.
but, so you were talking about how you'd played with Clint Riedel before. How'd you run into him?
Actually, he was playing. He was playing on a jam night at a bar in Clarion, and I would go up there and watch him and everything. And actually, he helped push me to get on the mic. And he would take a break, he would take his break, and he's like, "Go up there, go." And I broke my cherry, and I went up there and started playing on during his breaks, So that was, a couple of songs that I would try to play, and it was on some bike nights too that they had up there, and Clint Riedel was really the pusher, I would call him,
Yeah.
to encourage me to go up there, and you start gaining your confidence just slowly and slowly and slowly.
Yeah.
So, yeah. He's great.
I love that about him, how he always seems to be so positive and pushing people towards doing what they're good at or what they want to do.
Yeah.
Because I had showed him a guitar that I had customized, and he was just like, dude, this is so cool. You got to make me something now, And it's like, all right, well, we'll see.
Definitely.
Because I don't take too many commissions, and I'm always just super worried, especially when you're making art for somebody else. Or especially like usable art, like on a guitar. It's just like, I don't want to mess this up, because if it doesn't look cool, they're gonna be mad because this is their guitar or whatever, So, but he was always really good at like the first jam night that I actually went to that I played at. It was one that Clint Riedel was hosting in Barnum.
Yep.
And he was just like, you got to get up here, come on, kudos to Jeremy Ober as well, because he was up there playing, and he's just like, oh, I'm done for a little bit, so here you go. And he just hands me the guitar, and
Yep.
Clint's like, now you got to get up here, come
little
on.
push, the push, yeah.
Exactly. And it's not like I was incompetent. I was just, I'd never actually like just jumped in on a random song I didn't know on a random key and just gone with it, with people I'd never played with before.
Definitely.
It was always kind of one of my things that I was really intrigued by growing up, was people that could just swap out and just somebody else could jump in and then add solos to whatever, and they always knew what key it was in or something like that. And it was just pretty fun to actually finally figure that out and get to, be invited to go do those kind of things, or just show up and
definitely.
have somebody be like, yeah, you're just as cool as we are, get up here, man. And
Yep.
I hope I get to see it at jam night sometime. We're not quite at an hour, so I don't know if I have too much more to ask of you at this moment, but you were,
I can elaborate.
yeah,
So
go for it.
So there's a gentleman named Brad. he had 2 guitars that he had gifted to him, and they were mine. And one of them was probably the best one I've ever manufactured. And he'd been playing guitar for 30 some years, and he was really infatuated with it, and it was really great. And he actually played it last summer during a park festival, and he told me he was playing it there. So I showed up, and it was the first time that I manufactured a cigar box guitar that somebody else played really well.
Yeah.
And it's almost like your baby, that you manufactured and had it, and it brought tears to my eyes. It really did. It was great to see something that I manufactured and somebody else was playing it, So it was really neat.
Yeah, where'd you say that was at?
It was in a park festival last summer. His name was Brad.
Yeah, was it in Iowa here? Or was
it was in Iowa. Mm-hmm.
That's sweet. You said you sold. You were telling me you sold like a couple of them down like the Oklahoma way, and maybe a couple out towards
Tulsa.
Towards Tennessee or somewhere out there.
In Tennessee, a few in Texas.
Yeah.
Yep.
And those guys, do they just kind of tinker around on them? You ever get any callback on those guys telling you they played them at a show or something?
No,
like that?
I haven't. And my cousin that is in Tulsa, I've told him the same thing. Let me know how it sounds and how it plays, and everything. And he hasn't really gotten back to me on that aspect of it. And that's why, like I said, this is the first experience that I've had that I actually seen somebody in person play.
Oh, cool.
A cigar box guitar that I manufactured.
Yeah.
And it sounded great, and he sang, and I'm like, this is almost the complete circle for a builder.
Okay, let me ask you this. Before you played your own cigar box guitar, had you ever seen somebody in person playing one?
No. Not in person.
So it was just one of those things you saw on the internet and were like, let's try this out.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome, man. I don't know if it's a generational thing or what it is, but I feel like there's such a DIY thing kind of coming back as of the last 5 years or so, where people are just like, I saw this thing online, I got to try it out. They actually go through and research their own way to go do it. And I'm not saying that like younger people don't do it, because younger people are, they certainly do their own thing,
definitely.
So just because it's something that I'm not doing, but as far as like, I learned how to play the guitar online, and it's just something that I wanted to figure out. And it's not like I was just like, oh, I'll be damned if I'm going to pay somebody to teach me guitar, or whatever. It was just, that's all I had available was like tabs online and things like that.
Sure.
So, it's just kind of nuts that you just saw this thing online. Was it the video of the guy playing Folsom Prison Blues that kind of hooked you in, or was it just Yeah.
Yep.
It's just, oh my gosh, that is so cool. So you can literally point to the one person.
Play the solo of it and everything. It's great.
Oh, that is sweet. So you could point to like the one guy in the one video for the reason that you started doing all of this as of now.
Yep.
And it's not like this defines you, because you said you like even play the drums, and can you still play the piano at all?
Yep.
Yeah.
I can read piano music, so sure.
So yeah, if somebody put something like church music or something in front of you, you could bust it out if you had to.
Yeah.
That's crazy cool. So have you ever thought about like playing piano at a jam night or something like that? Or like, you almost never see keyboards at a jam night.
I do have a couple of keyboards. One of my keyboards, I can plug it in. I've plugged my keyboard into the PA before and dabbled with it. There's a fairly big learning curve with the piano. Like I said, I can read music, so I would have to study the song first and learn how to play the song first before I go to a jam night and bust something out.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. Well, that's the other thing is like sight reading piano music is not something you can just do, because there's so much more moving and articulation going on. It seems like, because you're playing like everything in the bass all the way through the treble staff, like you're playing it all as opposed to just, I don't know, most guitar stuff is just simple chords and a couple of hammer-ons and pull-offs here, and you sound like a wizard, So, do you do all slide stuff with your cigar box guitars, or is there any stuff that you can actually like finger pick out, even though there's no frets?
Well, there's hammer-ons that I do, and there's I play a Black Crow song, and that has harmonics involved in it.
Oh, cool.
So, you can still do harmonics with a cigar box guitar.
Yeah, I'm sure the science is still kind of the same science as a guitar. Like 12th fret's about halfway down, so that the halfway point you've got a harmonic, and then
correct.
What would it be, like 5th fret, 7th fret? You'd have a harmonic. You'd have one near the 4th fret somewhere.
Yeah. So all my cigar box guitars are with a 25-inch scale.
Okay.
From nut to bridge.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. So that's not actually like a mini little handheld like
No.
kids-sized guitar. It's almost it's like full-sized.
Oh, well, yeah. And that's one thing. I do have 2 6-string acoustic guitars. I pulled that back out. I pulled that out of my pocket. I do have 2 6-string acoustic guitars, and they're now that I'm playing cigar box guitars. Cigar box guitars are so tiny, and then when I grab this 6-string, I'm like, it's just so huge. I'm
Yeah.
like, how do I wrap my arm around this? So yeah.
Yeah, that's teaching guitar lessons. That's like one of the toughest things is to get people comfortable sitting, like holding their hand all the way around an acoustic guitar. Because
Yep.
it's, I mean, even for kids, it's just super huge.
Yep.
So they got to go with like a junior-sized one or have shoulder problems the rest of their life.
Yeah.
But even with like fully adult-sized people, it's just like, yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird, but you just let your arm hang over the big edge of it over here and do it, And
Sure.
so, I mean, that's something I guess I never really thought too much of either, is you have such a smaller body on the guitar compared to like an acoustic. So you don't actually get to like rest your arm on it and kind of be lazy about it. You got to kind of actually saddle up to the thing and play it,
Correct.
So it might have like a little bit of a different, I don't know. Let's put it this way. Like if you got an electric guitar, you can see sometimes some people put it like straight in their crotch and then the neck is more pointed upwards, where some people play the acoustic guitar and the neck is like parallel to the ground.
Yep.
So, I mean, there's that little bit of swing making it, the farther you point it up, the quote unquote easier it is to play usually. So like on a cigar box guitar, do you just kind of like do the same thing, like point it about 45 degrees and just kind of stick it somewhere between your legs and go, or?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, there's no bevel on it to fit on your legs.
No,
so.
no bevel. Yeah. And I've learned throughout the different ones I've built, where do you put the volume knob? Where do you put the tone knob? Don't put it over here, and maybe it needs to go over here because of the design of the graphics. And I've started making scarf necks too on the cigar box guitar, on the neck actually.
What's a scarf? What's a scarf neck?
So the headstock is angled back around 5 to 7 degrees, and it
Yep.
helps with this is the fancy word, attonation, or I can't really
Yeah.
fancy word about
Intonation. Probably,
intonation.
maybe.
Yeah, the intonation of the guitar. Yeah, so that scarf, the scarf headstock is a huge improvement on my building skills.
So that's when you actually pitch the headstock back a little
Correct,
bit
yep.
instead of just leaving it straight.
Straight. Yep.
Yeah, I'm sure that would help out quite a bit with like putting the right amount of tension on the string
Yep.
at the nut, because
Yep.
there's I saw something about that with like Les Paul guitars. Some people string the bridge up one way and some people string it up another way, and it all has to do with that kind of stuff as to how much of an angle you want to put off the strings on the backside on the bridge or up towards the nut. But
Yep.
that's something else I'd never thought too much of until I started like looking into some things like let's throw this out. Since you build guitars, you kind of can understand like the basic physics of it. But like a reverse headstock guitar would have all the tuners on the bottom side. So if you would have the thickest string would have to travel the farthest all the way out to the very end.
Yep.
Which would make it, if you have that much tension on it, it's going to make the headstock kind of at like a compromise position, because if you think about a normal one, the thickest string, which is on top, goes to the closest tuner. So you don't actually have this tension running all the way down the distance of the headstock. So, because I'd seen like broken headstocks before, and people would be like, "Oh, this headstock broke because blah 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 blah." And you just kind of, like you said, going online and trying to figure out why things happen.
Sure.
And that was something I found out was like people with reverse headstocks had that issue sometimes with
That could be, yeah.
that being a thing. Have you ever? I mean, you've only been doing it for so long, but have you ever had one that you've built like actually had like the neck kind of twist on you or anything at all?
Haven't really twisted. When you get to the 4 strings, it puts a little bit more tension on the neck, I would say. So I typically use maple for the neck.
Cool.
I built a moonshine cigar box guitar, and I used hickory for that neck.
Cool.
I've used oak also. Maple's a pretty hard wood. That's pretty good to use.
Yeah, it seems to be like the run of the mill for
Yep.
most like electric guitars or even bass guitars, things like that. But I guess if you don't have all the strings on there, you don't necessarily need to have
Truss rods.
things
Yeah.
like that. And I mean, like, It's not like it's that much. It's not like it's really small, but since there's significantly less wood to it, using oak wouldn't be that big of a deal. You know, people, oh, oak's heavy or something. Like it wouldn't matter. Like maple's heavy too, so
Yeah.
it's really not that big of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
What's like? What about the sizes of a cigar box? Is there
Yeah,
like a difference, like a big difference in sizes?
Yeah,
Or
that does have a play in the sound of it. You get into thinner, 1 inch thick cigar boxes, and you're really close to a hard body
yep,
sound, and you have to reinforce that box. You're almost putting the whole wood in the whole box in
Yeah.
that 1 inch thick area. There's 2 inch thick ones they're pretty decent, and they hold a lot of volume for in the sound area. And then get bigger ones too. So when you get a bigger cigar box, a longer one, I guess you'd say. Typically on a guitar, your fretboard goes over the top of the body. So with the non-fretted cigar box guitar, I mean, there's no fretboard to go over the top of the cigar box. So I struggle with that because I'm almost ending like at the 15th or 16th fret.
Yeah.
Because then you're going to get into the cigar box.
yep,
So I haven't really got to that point where I'm putting fret markers on the actual cigar box because I need the 18th and 19th and 20th fret. But
yeah.
yeah.
Oh man, that's another thing I never really thought too much about
Yeah.
because like when you first start looking into like acoustic guitars, some of them have like a cutaway on the bottom so you can actually get up farther if you need to.
Yep.
Have you ever thought about trying to add a cutaway to a cigar box? I don't know if I don't know if it would compromise it too much or.
No, I've seen some online.
Oh really?
Yep, that have cutaways in them. Yep.
Have
And
you
they
ever-
rest on your leg, and stuff.
Yeah. Have you ever like it's still the actual cigar box? They just like reconstituted it into a different shape or.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, I'm sure that would take quite a bit of actual work to do.
Woodworking. Yeah.
Yeah. So they would probably have to do that to a wooden cigar box as opposed to like
Yeah, I
like
would
one of the
say so.
paper ones. Because I
Yeah.
wouldn't imagine you could cut through like one of those. Because it's when I think paper cigar box, I think like cardboard, like ridiculously rigid cardboard, something
Yeah,
like that.
I think it's like MDF or like paneling.
Okay.
That's kind of the wood paneling, and some of them have oak in them.
Uh-huh.
Have oak paneling in them.
Oh,
So I mean, they're actually wood. So
crazy.
yeah.
Man, this has been just like me asking like 1,000 questions and learning all about this. And believe it or not, we're actually really close to an hour now. But do you have any, like, what are some of the craziest stories you have about some of these cigar box guitars? Like your biggest successes or your most epic fails or something like that. If you have anything kind of
So
fun stories.
yeah, so I found a guy on Facebook that does some really crazy paintings, and he paints on some cigar box guitars, and he actually makes some boxes and stuff. So he was in England. He lives in England, so I contacted him on Facebook, and he paints and makes a box that is a moonshine box, and it's really cool looking. So I ordered it from him, and he shipped it to the U.S., and I put the hickory neck on it, and that's a 4-string. It's got a humbucker in it. And my wife painted some a phrase down the side of the neck, and it turned out to be really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
When you say moonshine box,
Well, he painted a moonshine graphic on the actual box. He manufactured the box himself.
Oh, cool.
So it's a wood box, and he has some X's on the side. He's got a skull on the side of it. So on the side of the neck, it says a hooch recipe on the side of the neck. And so there's some phrases and stuff that go along with it. And really, the cigar box guitar is just a huge type of theme. So each one of them has a different theme to them. Each one has a different color, different thickness. And that's what I really like about it, too, is there's not one cigar box guitar that's alike.
yeah, they're like snowflakes.
Yeah.
So
I
like
mean, they're different colors, shapes, sizes.
yeah, and that's not necessarily all by your design. Some of that's just by virtue of what cigar boxes you have, what designs on the outside, what
Yep.
kind of neck you decide to throw on the thing,
Yep.
whether it's 3 or 4 string.
Yeah, I made a custom one for a guy in Eagle Grove, and it's all based off of tequila.
Huh.
So
So-
it's yellow, and it's got a tequila bottle engraved and kind of recessed into the box, and
Oh, nice.
yeah, it's pretty neat.
Have you done much stuff like let's see here on the front? You still have like a front of your neck. Have you ever done much like designing to that, like wood scribing, or like you ever thought about getting like a brand kind of thing and just like branding the neck with something?
That's the next steps. You know, if that decision comes to fruition, to get a brand and brand that box. And my wife is really good at painting, so she's painted some of the tops of the fretboards with different phrases and in the past.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, Steve Vai was one of the first people. He had the vine inlay on his guitar, and like PRS does like the falling dove inlay, and Schecter, as of recently, has been getting pretty big into putting all sorts of stuff all over their fretboards, whether it be like a vine leafy pattern or something kind of like that.
And I've got into different types of actual sound holes, to where that the C clef. The actual C shape of the sound hole that you see on like violins and stuff. I've actually got into scrolling those out on the lids of the cigar boxes. Different shapes that you would see on typical cellos and violins. I've actually put those into there.
Yeah, that's pretty great. Like, have you found that makes I'm sure it does, and I'm sure it does, but like putting like a different sized hole somewhere else, or a different shaped hole somewhere else, or something like that. Have you? I'm sure that makes a difference.
Experimented with different size shapes, and that's up to interpretation of how it actually produces the sound and what it sounds like. But there's all sorts of theory on that. So
because one of the excuse me, one of the first things I saw was it was an Ovation, I believe was the brand name for the guitar, and it was like an acoustic, but the sound hole was all up near like the top. I guess if you're looking at the guitar, it's up near the top right corner, but it's up above the neck, up in the corner, and you're like, what is that? Does it even work when you do that? And you pick it up at the shop and you play a couple notes, and you're like, oh, this thing works just as good as anything. It just sounds a little bit different. I mean, in the defense of the standard acoustic guitar, I think this one had like a composite body, so it wasn't all wood or anything like that.
Yeah.
I guess that's another thing. Have you ever thought about trying to like make your own like composite style bodies, or like make like a mold that you could do,
fiberglass,
or something like that?
No, not really. It's all about the search of the cigar box. Where do you find it at? And my wife will actually go off and stop at the tobacco shop in Minneapolis just on her trip, and she'll text it to me. You're not going to believe the cigar box that I found. I've never seen this one before.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's almost the search of the cigar box, and to like I have probably 30 or 40 cigar boxes stacked up in my garage that I at one point in time in my life I might make a guitar out of it, but so it's the search of the different type of cigar box. I've never seen this color before.
Yep.
So as for fiberglass or getting into some strange shapes and stuff, not really. No, I haven't really got into that.
I really dig how I mean, we've talked about it a little bit in the podcast, but like it's kind of like we're like an hour in, and it's like the thrill of the hunt is almost
definitely
equally driving you as much as you want to just build the thing. I think like just it's not like you're just collecting cigar boxes to collect cigar boxes, and it's not like you're just gonna have a bunch and sell just a cigar box store on eBay or something. But you have like you go out there and you try to find neat ones that are just exactly what you're looking for, something you've never seen before, like a crazy color, something like that. And it's I don't know, that's really intriguing to me that is like one of the things that's fueling all of this.
Yeah. So the first one that I made, the actual cigar box is called a brick house.
Okay.
So my last name is Bricker.
Yep.
So that was the first one that I made, was the brick house cigar box guitar. And the one that I'm actually, if you call it gigging with, it's the brick house also. It's black. So,
that's cool.
Yeah.
So you've got your own like, I don't know, it's not like your custom brand, but it's like your custom brand, like you make
custom name brand.
Yep. That's really neat. I guess I don't have anything I can just borrow someone else's name. I'm sure there's something out there that's kind of like Stockdale or Peter or whatever, but man, that's really cool. I'm glad we actually got to like, sit down and talk a little bit about this. And I don't really think we're going to add any like cigar box jamming to the podcast, but I do actually want to see one of these things in person. So we'll hop off the podcast here and get to that in a second. Is there like anything else you want to add? Any thank yous you want to say to anybody out there? Any shout outs, anything at all?
Thanks to Clint Riedel for pushing me, to play, and who knows what would have happened if Clint wasn't there, to push me to play. So it's kind of it's fueled the play part of the cigar box guitar, and it's fueled the building of it also a little bit. So yeah, and my wife for putting up with me building these and playing them. So yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. It's just that those are probably some of the best shout outs you could give. Just somebody that inspired you, and then the people that are around you for putting up with what you're doing. And
thanks to you too.
Yeah. Oh, I'm really glad I could get you on here, because it's atypical of what I've been doing mostly. Because mostly it's just like, hey, you're in an established band and you're doing this stuff around the state and all this stuff, and I've recently been trying to reach out to other people. Like the last podcast I had before this was I'm going to school at Iowa Central right now, and I had one of the kids that I go to school with down there. He's like, hey, I like these music and this music and these guys, and I was like, let's go to a jam night and play sometime. And he's like, okay, let's do it. So we actually like went and jammed one night. I was like,
nice.
I didn't know you were actually like could play and stuff. So I was like, well, get on the podcast, man.
Yeah.
Let's hear what your story is,
Yep.
So
Sure.
I'm just like really intrigued to hear everybody's story, and it's fun because you actually get to sit down with somebody that you like don't know, and you get to like, you got to tell me a little bit about yourself. I got to tell you a little bit about myself. We had some parallels in there, and it's just thank you very much for coming and doing the podcast, man.
Yeah, thanks.
Absolutely. There's another podcast in the bank, ladies and gents. Thanks for sticking through to the end of that one. Thanks again to Kirk Bricker for joining me for the podcast. I had a great time sitting down and getting to know him and learning more about cigar box guitars. I certainly learned a lot. One thing you guys didn't see was after we got done recording the podcast, he did bring some guitars in, and we plugged them into some amps down here, and he showed me some of the stuff he's been playing and how the guitars actually look. These cigar box guitars are insane. Every single one is very unique to the vision that he put into each individual guitar. Like he said, the Moonshine one was awesome. It had copper on it and such. It's just mind-blowing the amount of work that he actually puts into these things, and how much he just customizes everyone to be a very individual thing, and an artwork piece, not just a very playable instrument. Because that's the other thing. These aren't just like some hokey cigar box guitars. These things play and sound amazing. We put them through a couple of the amps at my house, and they sound so good. So thanks, huge thanks to Kirk Bricker for making the journey to my little studio here and joining me on the podcast this week. And I don't have a whole lot of information. He does have some videos on YouTube. He said he would share his YouTube channel with me, so I'm hoping to get that shared in the description section down below. Otherwise, I'm going to tag him in the Facebook, and I'll probably put his Facebook page in the description as well. So if you guys are interested in these cigar box guitars, which are very cool, and I mean very cool, hit him up, and he does great work. I'm very blown away by how awesome these are. Not that I doubted how good they were, but after the podcast was over, I pretty much just sat here with an open jaw watching him describe and play each one of these instruments for me. They work so well. It's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. I can't believe he's put this much work into it, and it shows because of how good they actually are. So give him a shout-out. Give him a friend request. Shoot him a message. If you want a cigar box guitar, you have found the guy in North Central Iowa to hit up, because these things are phenomenal. So make sure you check out his stuff. Maybe he'll set up a Facebook page, maybe not. As of right now, the only way to get a hold of him is to shoot him a message through Facebook. Otherwise, you can hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, anywhere, and we will put you in contact with him, because these are amazing instruments. So thanks again to Kirk Bricker for joining me for a podcast, and thanks again to everybody for listening to episode number 25 with Kirk Bricker. I will be back next week with a gem of a podcast. So thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time. Peace.